All right, so what we're doing here is I am going to cut this right here and get this plank cut around it. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking a full plank here and I'm lining it up perfectly with this butt joint right here, acting like this is continuing on, and I'm going to line it up all the way down. Just make sure that you line the joints up, this joint and this joint and this joint. And then you can just take this cheater board. Now I've showed how to make this in other videos. Is all I do with the cheater board is I take the groove off. I cut the groove flush with the plank. And here's what it looks like before I cut it off. So I cut this off, flush with this. Now you can adjust this. You could leave some more of this on if you want to have a bigger expansion joint. This tongue here is about 1/8 inch, and then I use a marker to mark. So by the time I get that marker next to it, we're looking at about a 1/4 inch expansion joint. But if you want to have bigger, you can just leave some of this groove on. But I cut it flush off. That's how I do it. Anyway, so I'm going to take the cheater board here and just start marking this. Now, is all I'm going to do is mark. I'm using a permanent marker here. Now you can use, if you use a permanent marker, you can take this off with denatured alcohol, hairspray, just alcohol, any like rubbing alcohol. But you can also use like a dry erase marker that will come off easier. The problem with dry erase markers though is that they come off too easy. So I like to use this instead. But here you can see how I'm lining my cheater board up. I'm gonna stick this edge out a little bit away from the wall so I get my expansion joint there. And then I'm just gonna draw my line right here. And now I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Now I'm using this side because this is a perfectly square edge right here. This isn't. It is, but I cut this with a speed square, so it is actually close to being perfectly square. But just to be sure that I am square, and then I'll do the same thing. I'll run it out past this door right, or this wall right here, and then I'll just take my marker and I'll mark. And now that's my cutout right here for that. So there's a lot of different ways to cut plank. I use a jigsaw, I use a utility knife. You can also use one of those big cutters, the shears. But jigsaw works great for cuts like this. All right, so I cut this, now I'm gonna stick it in. So I'm just gonna get in, lift it up a little bit, get the butt joint in. Once I get that in, then I can start working the rest of it in. So I had to use a little bit of a pry bar here too, kind of get this to lock in the butt. Just want to jump in and say, hey, I'm Joe Latender and you're watching my channel, so that's how you do that. I really appreciate it. I got a ton of stuff packed inside this video for you, so let's watch. So now I got these rows in. So now I'm caught up to the rows that are in this kitchen here, where we're gonna bring this floor together. We're reconnecting. And also we're gonna go down the rest of this hall. So I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do that. So all I'm gonna do is I wanna snap a reference line to go by. So I don't wanna cover that line up right away. I wanna be able to use it when I have another row of plank in there. So I'm just gonna come out with a nice easy number. And I'm going to mark it at 2 feet. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to measure out and mark this at 2 feet. Now what we want to do is transfer this line all the way down. So I'm going to show you, or I'm once again going to use the string line method to do that. Good?
Yep.
Okay, now I'm just going to hook a board up here. And I'm going to hook up another board. So I'm going to hook on 2 pieces here to fill this door. Now I just want to make sure, just so I don't line this joint right here up with a joint in one of those rows. So right about here looks pretty good. Now normally you always work away from the groove, okay? The tongue should always face your wall that you're working away from when you start. And then when you are working with your plank, installing it, you would install away from the groove. So I would actually start down there, work my way this way because here's the groove. Well, this is a situation where we're doing something a little more difficult. So I'm going to start in the difficult area right here and I'm going to work away from the groove that way, but then I'll have to work away from the tongue that way after I'm done cutting all of this in. So I'm going to connect the butt joint and then I'm going to connect to these pieces in the floor right here. So where this is connected to the floor right here, where it goes into the kitchen, I'm just going to measure because it's connected. We know this is solid. We know this is right. I'm going to measure to this line that we just snapped. So now I'll go down the plank here and make sure that I get this plank all straight with the line the same amount. And you can see for me it's 5 15/16 in this example. So now I'll just keep running my cheater board down this wall, marking the rest of these planks. And you can see how nice it is just to drag that along the wall and pull it all at one time and keep your marker alongside of it. Really makes it a lot faster on long walls. Now we just take it apart and cut it. Okay, so now I'm just going to measure this line again for where it's connected to the floor. I got 14 15/16. So now I want to do the same thing again where I put the scrap and then I screw. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about what if you were on concrete here, what would you do? Well, for example, this drill that I have is also a hammer drill. And you can hear it when I do this. Let me come out a little bit. So you heard that? That's a hammer drill. That's what you need. Now a hammer drill is what you're going to need for concrete, and then as far as the screw goes, you're going to want to use Tapcon screws. Alright, so now I want to show you how we're going to do this. How we're going to figure out this piece right here. We have this all solid now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a piece on. I'm going to hook a piece on. Actually, I'm going to hook a piece on here first. Now I'm going to take a piece right here to hook those 2 pieces on. Now doing that gives me strength here to get to use another piece right here. Now, we are cheating. We're stopping right here where this wood ends because this dips down. We're just gonna get some carpet in there and finish that off. So we're cheating. But what we wanna do is figure out how big of a piece we need to finish into here. So I'm just gonna measure from here to where this seam was, which that seam was right here. It's about 3 feet, a little less than 3 feet. All right, so I cut my piece. Now I'm gonna line it right up at that butt joint perfectly. Right there. Lock it in. Now you can see I have it where I want it to end. Now I'm gonna take my cheater board and I'm gonna cut this. Now this piece is gonna move right into here, so that's why I built it out like I did. I'm just gonna take my cheater board, slide it under the jam till it hits, and then bring it back out a smidge. I'll make a mark right there. So now I know that that's where it's gonna end right there. Now as far as this way goes, I'll cheat and use a little longer piece and just stick it along the wall here so it's flush with the wall so I can see where it's going to end. And then I'm just going to come in about a 1/4 inch from that because it's going to run under deeper than what I have marked here. So you can see I came at the my jam saw and I cut some of that sheetrock out, and that was so that when I cut this piece that goes around the door that I can slide it in farther. So I know I'm not going to end up being short there. Just to make sure it's going together correctly, I just use a scrap piece. Everything looks good. Now what we'll do is we'll measure, you can stay there, that same 14 and 15 sixteenths down here. Get this plank where it's supposed to be. Now I can just cut a couple of scraps. And I want to put one on each seam and one on the end. Now since this one's so close, I'm not going to put one on the end. I'm only going to put it down here. Make sure I'm still where I need to be. Okay, so now this is all secured all the way down. It's not going to move anywhere. Now I'm going to finish all of this way. And then when I'm all done, I'll come back and we'll work that way. Okay, so I'm doing my last row here in this hall, extending down, and what I want to do is I want to line up my plank perfectly with the locking system here. So you can see the locking system is going to be lined up perfectly. I'm waiting to go into this room, so I'm still going to line this plank up, but I'm actually not going to install this plank right here. But it's going to, so what's going to happen is I'm going to still mark all of this, and right here is going to be the first plank that I'm going to put in. Later on, when I'm ready to go into there and demo it, then I will put these other 2 planks in. It's really a lot easier if you can put a joint inside the doorway somewhere. It's going to be a lot easier to put this piece in and this piece in if there's a joint in the doorway, whether it's a big, huge, long door or a small 3-foot door. Okay, so when I'm talking about lining up the locking system, you can see that here's the locking system here, here's the locking system there on top. I just line them up perfectly so that these 2 edges are perfectly aligned and you can't see the one on the bottom. Like if I move it, so just get it perfectly aligned and then you know that you'll be straight when you're putting these planks down on the floor. Alright, so this is kind of a tough one to put in, so I'm going to get my hand underneath right here and get at least get the butt joint locked in. And then get the rest of this kind of in. Now we're going to use a dry bar. We're going to shove that in there, and now I'm going to start hitting it all into joint. And I'm going to do that all the way throughout underneath here. You're not going to be able to see though, because I'm going to have this venting way. Let's see it go together. So these dry bars come really handy in spots like this. I just went outside and cut a bunch at 39 3/4 and staggered the pattern. But what I really want to make sure that I do here, and what's going to be helpful for you, is to have a joint somewhere in this doorway to make it easier to put this last piece in. Alright, so now I've got my joint lining up in the door. It's going to make it easier for me. Now I'm just going to start using my cheater board. Now the other thing is I'm putting a T-mold right here in this door to the tile, so I'm just going to leave about a 1/4 inch gap. I'm not trying to get it super precise, I'm just eyeballing it. Now I want to slide my cheater board under, make that mark, and then I'm going to slide it under this way. And then I can make my mark where I want it to end, which is going to be right there. Now I've squared this off with a speed square with the locking system. So I know if I just slide this perfect, line it up with the locking system like I did there. The locking system's perfectly lined up. Now I know that I can make that mark there and it's going to be accurate. You can see how I cut that sheetrock away up there, and then I did over on the other side. It just makes it so that you don't have to notch around that too. It's already hard enough to notch around a door jamb. You don't want to have to notch around the sheetrock too. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. Squaring it up again, marking. Now you can see, maybe we can go a little farther here. You can see how that notched out my doorway right here. So now I'll go outside and cut this with the jigsaw. Okay, so all plank has a locking system. It has a groove and it has a tongue. Now you want to try to always work away from the groove if you can, if possible. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I want to put this piece in first where the groove is. Now I've got this piece in place and I can't slide it all the way, so what I like to do is take a scrap that I cut, hook it on into the groove, the tongue is on there. Just take my pull bar get it in place. Did that. Now I can slide this in and get it a little farther. Now I overcut my jamb a little bit, or got way good everything out of there so you can see the gap that I have there now. I was able to slide that piece in easily. And now I got to bring it back to me. And so what I'm going to do is just try to get it back a little bit so it's in there. I don't have it locked in anywhere. This is where my pull bar comes in. And I'm going to hit it there. Now I still got that gap right there. Slide my pull bar in, give it a hit. There you go. Now, if this is a full piece that we're trying to put in, it can be hard to stick it underneath these jambs. So you want to try to put a joint in the door if possible. Now I want to talk to you about a couple other areas here. This area right here is where we have a closet that's going to be ending right here at this tile, and then also right across from this in the hall we have a doorway that goes down to the basement. So it's a set of stairs which has a stair nose. Now what you see me doing here is I like to cut the sheetrock away at least a couple inches away from the door jamb so that I can slide the plank underneath that sheetrock a little bit farther past the door jamb, so when the trim comes up to the jamb there's not going to be a gap there that might not get hidden with the trim. You can see how I also did this over here where I just cut all the way to the wall. Now we'll clean all of that debris out before we install the plank. Now I'm trying to figure out where I want to end my plank there coming down the stairs. And so I'm taking some scrap pieces now and I'm going to fill in where the plank actually is going to go. The plank that you see that's sticking out from the wall there down into the hallway now is actually what's going to go where I just put those two scrap pieces. And so what I want to do is quickly mark this without having to use a tape measure. You can see how I had the locking systems lined up perfectly where you were seeing the groove. Well, all I do is I reverse that plank, so now the tongue is facing the other way, so it's opposite. I just flipped it around, and now I'm going to put that right up to the edge where I want to make my cut for that plank where I want it to end. And you can see right there at the locking system at the end of it, I'll just make a mark right there, and that's going to allow my 1/4 inch expansion joint. So now I'm just going to cut this with my utility knife. I just score it once, maybe twice sometimes, depending on the plank, and then I can just snap that right off on my knee. So I'm going to put this plank together and get it connected to both of these scrap pieces. Again, this plank that you see that's sticking out off of those scrap pieces are actually going to go in where that void is right there that you see to the right. And so now I'm taking my cheater board, I'm just lining it up with my door jamb here, and I have the sheetrock cut away out there on the other side so I can run that underneath the jamb quite a bit, which makes it nice having the sheetrock gone. And you can see how I lined it up with the other wall there. And so now we have a straight cut here, but I do want to talk to you a little bit more about this. Now I could have notched that farther with my jam saw, and I don't want to get everything dirty, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I'm just going to mark where the sheetrock ends there, and then I'm going to come where it notches in underneath. I'm going to make another mark right there. So now when I make my cut on this piece, I'm just going to notch that part right out. Now I stick my cheater board up against the wall on the inside of this closet, and I'm just going to ride that along the wall here so I can mark the rest of the cut on this board. Now we're going to go to the other side over here and mark this door jamb that goes into the stairway. You can see how I just shoved my cheater board again underneath the jamb. Now when I shove it under there, I don't put it in so far that it's hitting the 2x4 stud that's underneath there. I do leave a little bit of a gap in there, and you can see I cut that sheetrock out. You seen that earlier, so I'm able to make it nice straight cuts there. Now on the other side over here, I did have another spot where I didn't go far enough with the jam saw, so I'm going to notch that out. But when I was cutting the jams, I should have just cut the sheetrock all the way to the corner there, and it would have made it a lot easier. Alright, so now I'm going to just tear these out. Slides in there nicely. Get it to lock in. Okay. See how that dove underneath the sheetrock, so we'll be good there. I'll get this piece slid in. Okay, so there was a lot of good stuff inside this video that I'm sure will help you. Now, if you're looking for some more videos that will walk you through your plank installation, go check out the other videos I have on my channel. There's a lot on there. I'll show you where to start, how to install the first few rows. There's stuff on there about bathrooms, kitchens, you name it. Anything that comes up on your vinyl plank installation, it's in there, so go check that out. And that's how you do that, is my channel name. Now, if you're looking for some personal coaching, or maybe you want some extra help where you can share your drawing, I can walk you through your entire plank installation step by step, check out Laminate University. I'll have a link below. It's not just for laminate, it's for laminate, vinyl plank, wood. Just go check out that link, click on it below, and I'll be over there waiting for you. Hey, if you liked this video, please hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button too if you want to see some more. And then that notification, the bell there, hit that if you want to get notified when I do release some more videos. I really do appreciate you watching my channel. Again, my name is Joe Latender. I almost left, guys. I almost left this, okay? I want to quote something from a song by Rascal Flatts. It's called Changed. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. And it talks about how, well, just I'll use myself as an example. And maybe I'm asking you, hey, I've got off track. I've made mistakes. I've backslid my way into that place where souls get lost, lines get crossed, and the pain won't go away. Is that you? I got another question for you. Is he good? Is he God? That's right. He is good God Almighty. If you don't know him, check him out. Hey, I'm Joe Latender. Thanks for watching.